All right, it's time to create a bump map and start getting this guy ready to go into an engine. So what I'm going to do for the bump map is duplicate this, and I'm going to take my original layer. I don't really need that. And I'm going to just leave this guy here. So there's transparency there. Okay, so here I'm going to just apply the layer. So apply. So it's gone now. And the next thing I want to do is I'm going to turn this thing black and white. So the shortcut for that is Control Shift U. So now it's just a grayscale image. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at what happens if I just put a levels above this. Put a levels on it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clip the level to this layer, which means all I'm doing is it's only going to affect this layer, just so I don't accidentally affect another layer later. Okay, and say OK. Wait a second. What did that just do? So, oh, it did clip it. I just didn't see it. I don't know why I brought that up, that heading up. So it's Control Alt G to clip a layer to the one below it. So you can see right here, release clipping mask. Well, if I had this released, it would be Alt Control G to create a clipping mask. So now what I want to do is I want to start approaching this thing in a way where I say, hey, what would the bump be like on this? So one thing that you really want to do in these cases is you want to go ahead and look at your original references. So if I could go and find that original one, which is this, open it up. It's coming up in my camera raw. Some of these highlights here are going to kind of give me an idea about what's down and what's up. So it looks like the black should be going down, or the darker areas, you see where the veins are. In the middle it goes down, and there's this little flip right here. And then you can see, in these areas that it goes down. Okay, so, and then it's probably curled up at the end. Let's look at these two, see if we can get some more idea about what this reference is telling us. So I'm going to go ahead and just take mental note at what I'm seeing, and I'm going to hit cancel. Okay, so being that the edges are flipping up, I'm going to do something special here. Go ahead and double click on my layer. So if you just double click right in here, not on the words though, it'll bring up your layer style. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull what's called an inner glow on here. And the inner glow by default is white. The opacity is set pretty low. And you can go ahead and change, like how much is it choke in. So I'm going to go ahead and just, and really the fade of it too. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And so what that's going to do is that's going to help feed the actual shape of this object. So now all those edges there would be flipping up. So if it's too uniform, you can go in there and like flatten this out and kind of paint some of it out. So let me show you how you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just go in the layer below and make a new layer. And then I'm just going to hit Control E, which will collapse this in. And now that it's collapsed, excuse me, why did it not do that? I'm sorry. Take these two. So I just hold Control and select both of them. Then I hit Control E. And they must have changed something in this new Photoshop because it's not letting me do that. So what it's doing is it's collapsing the levels first, and then I can collapse it into that. So that makes sense. It didn't know what to do with the levels, so it collapsed the levels down. And then it's collapsed. So I just had to hit Control E twice. Okay, so now that I've got that, what I can do is I'll have to put the levels on it again later to get the effects that I want. But I can actually just duplicate this layer again and apply the layer mask, and then Control Shift U to turn it black and white. And then I can do is just go ahead and I'm going to just use the eraser here, even though masking is the more correct way. Now, why would I show you the wrong way? Let's mask it. Okay, so let's go ahead and just get a nice faded brush, and let's mask. So let's just paint some different, kind of edges in here. And we could also consider that, like, it seems like there was divots in certain areas like that. And so maybe we can be smart and kind of follow, like, where the veins come out maybe is a divot. And so you can almost see that some of these look darker. And then where it's not, we can just paint a little white in. So now it's not so uniform. So now we're starting to make, this is part of what you need to kind of think about when you're trying to make something that's photoreal. You want to, trick the viewer by basically just kind of observing what you're trying to reproduce and finding things about it that you can put into your artwork. So let's just gonna leave it like that. So now not everything's flipping. Some of it is, some of it isn't. So I think that that's a better way to do that. Okay, so we can go ahead and grab the two of these. I'm gonna hit Control G, which should group them. And I'm going to put this bump on here. Because this is almost every time I work, I always do stuff like this. Because I just want to differentiate that from this. So I can call this color, or diffuse, or albedo, whatever, nomenclature you want to use. And then the bump, I'm just going to leave it like that. Now, when I get over to here, actually in the newer Photoshops, the old Photoshops, you couldn't do this, but the newer ones, I can actually put the levels right on this guy here. So I just can bring it out and then clip mask it, so Control Alt G, and so now it's actually affecting this layer. So if I went ahead and adjusted this, so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of pull in some white, pull in some black, and kind of just adjust the contrast here where the midpoint is. So I think I'm going to kind of go like this direction. Makes it easier for me to see. And so I'm just trying to, get a little bit better levels. Now, if I want this to be really, really specific about how it bumps, I can go in here and hand paint some of this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just make a new layer. And I'm going to bring my nice soft brush back out. And I don't want green, do I? So let's just hit this thing. You hit this, it gives you black and white, so it's kind of like your base. And then I'm going to just go ahead and hit 2 on my keyboard. And what that does, it's going to change my opacity to 20, and I'm just going to drop the flow as well. So it'll come out slower, and the opacity is only at 20. I'm just going to come in here, and respecting these veins, I'm just going to hand paint some of this stuff. Now, this is, you of course have to decide how far do you want to go with this stuff. How much is enough. And I might be, who knows? Maybe I'm overdoing it. Maybe this isn't. Maybe I could throw this into bitmap to material and get a decent look out of it without having to tweak all these parameters. Especially because bitmap to material has a lot of different sliders that help adjust these kind of things anyway. But if I want to get really specific and say, especially like something on this right here, so I want this edge to just lift up because I know that that's how that thing really is. And so I want that to be higher than the rest. And then of course I can go the opposite direction and change this to X. To X. I'm sorry, hit X so I can change it to black. And then I can kind of drop this stuff down if I want. So that's going to be lower. And even for that matter, I can make my brush bigger and just kind of just paint a gradient in here. So now I'm going to go ahead and like think about the big shapes. I'm going to go ahead and go right back to my white. So this whole area I kind of want to be a little bit higher, like that. And then it's going to kind of drop off, and then it's going to curl back up on the edges. So you can go something like that. And then, again, like these individual areas that are in between, you know, you can spend as much time as you want on this. I can't guarantee. I don't even know what it's going to look like yet. I honestly, this is, I have not done this. This is a tutorial on the fly, if you will. And I usually don't like doing that, but I feel confident enough that I can do it because I've done this so many times that I'm not afraid to see how this turns out. And I'm pretty sure it's going to turn out pretty cool. So I'm just going to go through and just kind of keep working this. And so like I'm going to say, see these veins here, those are going to be the areas that go down. So I can kind of even just get a little spotty here. Hey, I can make a brush if I wanted to. Let's pull my brush tools out here. Brush, I can go ahead and say scatter. And I can say scatter a little bit like that. You can mess with the count. I don't need to mess with texture for this one. Change the spacing, like so, and then even change the shape dynamic. So I can come to angle, which doesn't matter with the circle, but if I mess with the roundness, see, do something like that, then the angle jitter does matter. Alright, so close all that. And maybe I can just kind of randomly come in here. I do like using the specific, but some of this is so small that I'm going to just kind of randomly come in here and mess with it like that. Now let me just go back, because I regret doing that. I don't really, but I like being more specific. I know what I want, you know. So now I'm going to go ahead and go back to my black. And I'm going to just make this a little tighter, this smaller. And some of these major arteries are going to be dipping in. Now, what I'm showing you here, you know, this is getting very specific. It's time intensive. So before you go and try to do all this stuff, you know, you could just throw this into bitmap to material and see how it turns out. But the name of the class that I'm working this for is called Realistic Scenes. And in realistic scenes, you kind of gotta be willing to go the extra mile to make this stuff look really good. I'm gonna bring my opacity down even lower as I branch out, and maybe just so. Of course, hitting the number keys will bring my opacity lower. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take some of these like this. Brush it out, and in my head, see, I've done this kind of stuff so much that in my head, what I'm doing is I'm imagining what this will look like when the normal map hits it, you know, or I should say when the normal map filter is put on it, and you know when the lights are hitting it in the level, like what's it going to look like, and that's what I'm basing my painting on, and it just takes practice. You know, if you've not done this before, you're not going to be able to imagine it, especially, you know, the more you do it, the more you can kind of picture, okay, this is what it's going to look like. And, you know, the other part of it is, too, is it's just common sense. You know, black goes down and white comes up, and you're just thinking about what's the shape of this thing, you know. All right, so that's pretty cool. I think I'm pretty happy with how that's going to turn out, I believe. I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to save this. And make it a PNG, and I'm going to put this in. What I'm going to do is go to a new folder. It needs to be on Google Drive, and the group projects. We need a texture folder. Textures. call this Lilypad underscore B for bump. And I don't want any compression. And now I'm going to also export this as well. Now, one thing I noticed was there's kind of this little black edge here, and I kind of don't want that there. So what I'm going to do is pull that edge over a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just feather it, which should be Shift F6 for just pulling up the feather. And I'm only going to feather by like 1 radius. And I'm going to go ahead and just copy. Maybe a copy. Oop. Right layer. Maybe a copy, and then so I could just pull this over a little bit, like so. And then I can just, in this case, I'm not going to mask. I'm going to just erase, because I know I'm going to just collapse this right now. So here I am, boom. And let's put that there. Now I'm going to hit Control T, go to warp. I'm just going to pull it up a little bit, like so. Warp it in just where I want it. Now I could have stamped this too. I'm going to hit Control E, which is going to collapse it. And it's going to ask me at this point, do you want to apply? Do you want to preserve? You're going to say preserve, which will preserve this layer mask. Okay, and then I'm going to just come in here and I will use the stamp a little bit to this right there, like that. All right, that should do it. Okay, so now there's no separation there, no little black splotch. So, and in the bump map, it should be fine. Okay, so let's save this off. We want the same format, PNG, and I'm going to call this one color. Just gotta have a naming convention. That's good. And then, of course, I want to get rid of any extra stuff that I don't need, any bloat. Get rid of that. I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to just hit Control S to save this. Holy smokes, I hadn't saved this. That's crazy. Worked on this whole thing and I hadn't saved it. That's a bad example. Save your work. Okay, so that's finishing it off, getting the bump map out. And next we're going to take it into bitmap to material and see what kind of fly stuff we can do here. So let's stop this.